Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us at the 2022 British Dressage Annual General Meeting. After 2 years of disruption due to the pandemic, it is good to be back with what is a normal AGM, hosted at a championship event once again, albeit that we're in different surroundings today, because with the national championships moving from Stoneleigh to Somerford, we decided that we'd also move the AGM to a new location too. So we're here at Arena UK to coincide with our Pet Plan Summer Area Festival Championships, which is now in its second year. This is an ideal opportunity for us to meet our grassroots competitors, so thank you all for joining us this evening. And we're looking forward to hearing your feedback later on this evening. Our AGM is run once again as a hybrid event this year, with the meeting also broadcast live on our website. So members who are unable to be here in person also have the option to watch online from the comfort of their home. And it's also on YouTube, our YouTube channel, and on Facebook Live. As usual, we will cover the formal business required for our AGM first and receive reports from our Finance Director and Interim Chair, Caroline Godfrey, as well as myself as Chief Executive, and our Chief Operating Officer, Ben Waterhouse. We will also have individual presentations from each of the BD board directors, but in a slightly different format this year, as we have pre-recorded videos to play here in the room and online. The PowerPoint presentation that you'll see is therefore an abridged version, but a full deck of slides will be available online after the AGM, covering each of the technical portfolios in some more detail. So you'll be able to see that online on our website, along with a full recording of this evening's proceedings. Now, all bar one of our BD Board of Directors are here in person this evening. We just have apologies from our Judges Director, Peter Storr, who is busy judging as we speak at the Horse of the Year show. Please may I take this opportunity to introduce Caroline Godfrey, our Interim Chair and Finance Director, Simon Bates, who's our Sport Operations Director, Judy Harvey, our International Director, Tracy Ormrod, Para Director, Harry Payne, our Training Director, Claire Moyer, BD Youth Director, and Suzanne Homewood, our Business Development Director. Now, they will each report on the progress we have achieved in each area in the last 12 months, as British Dressage continues to make a strong recovery after the challenges presented by the COVID pandemic. We will then conclude this evening's session by answering questions that members have submitted in advance, as well as responding to any feedback from those here in the room. And we're happy to also meet members to have any conversations or address any points you want to raise privately after the meeting. So whether you're here in person or watching online, thank you to all of our members and stakeholders, from riders, owners and coaches to our officials, organisers and volunteers, for your part in contributing to another successful and record-breaking year for British Dressage. We really couldn't do this without your help and support. So this is the agenda for the AGM, as usual. You've just had the introduction. We will go through the ordinary and special business before I hand over to Caroline for the Chairman's overview. I will give you a summary of the last 12 months, and Ben will also give you perspective from the COO. As I say, we'll have some videos then from each of the directors, and we'll finish off with members' questions. So I'll now open the formal part of our AGM. You'll have already seen the notice of our AGM online, including our ordinary and special business, as well as the 2021 accounts for British Dressage on the BD website. I will therefore take as read the notice convening the meeting, and I can confirm that we have received 2 apologies for the meeting this evening from Isla Orty and Jenny Ward. Now we'll move straight on to our first ordinary resolution, and that's to receive the financial statements of British Dressage for the year ended 31st of December 2021 and the Director and Auditor's reports thereon. So for this section of the AGM, I would just like to hand over to our Finance Director, Caroline Godfrey, who will present the 2021 accounts.
Thank you, Jason, and good evening, everybody. As we move on to the first ordinary resolution, I'm pleased to present the audited financial statements for the year ended 31st December 2021 though that does seem a very, very long time ago. During 2021, we had changes in our finance team, and it was only in January 2022 that we were able to appoint our current financial controller, Claire Preston, who's with us here this evening. And with Claire's arrival, we're already being more proactive in our financial planning and are in a stronger position, therefore, to reinvest specific reserves into the sport. And I'll return to that later, but it's been a major point of discussion for the Finance and Business Development Committee, the British Dressage Board and the senior management team. At this stage, I would just say that we are committed to reinvesting substantial funds into the sport. In 2021, we made a surplus of just under 189,000, made up of a surplus in the charity of 73,000 and in the trading company of 116,000. Obviously, this was a much better result than we expected, particularly in view of the cost of the horse registration extensions which we offered, but once again reflects both the loyalty of long-standing members and the addition of many new members. And whilst 2021 was once again disrupted by COVID lockdowns, we were able to reschedule many competitions into a truncated season, and this reflects in our income levels. We also received a further £30,000 in furlough receipts from the government during the lockdown in Q1. So we ended the year with £2.5 million in our reserves. So to our key numbers for 2021. Our total income increased by 21.71%, from 3.42 million to 4.16 million. But I would say, obviously, that the percentage comparisons need to be treated cautiously because 2020 was not a normal year. So our membership increased by 106,000, horse registrations increased by 123,000, and competitions and training activities inevitably increased because in 2020 we were so limited as what we could do. On the debit side, our total expenditure increased by 19%, from 3.35 to 3.975 million, reflecting the full resumption of competitions, even if some of them were all squashed up into the same season, and a lot more training happening compared to the limited activity of 2020. So the key factors that led to a strong surplus in 2021 were the continued loyalty of our members after the pandemic, and a faster than expected recovery period from Q2 to Q4, resulting in the year end with 17,472 members and over 16,000 horses registered, which is absolutely fabulous. We were very, very pleased. Also, the enthusiasm of members to return to competition and the commitment from the staff and all stakeholders at BD to enable potentially lost competitions to be rescheduled. So that was brilliant too. And over 2/3 of competitions were rescheduled from Q1 to Q2, with the winter and summer seasons running concurrently. An amazing achievement. So this slide shows the income by category for 2021, with 2020 as a comparison. Obviously, the full accounts are online and anybody can look at the detail if they wish to. I've already highlighted the increases in income, but it would also highlight how valuable our charitable status is, with over £125,000 being received in gift aid from the government. So if any UK taxpayers haven't signed a gift aid declaration, please consider doing so. It really does help us. The 143% increase in competition income speaks for itself. Everyone was very keen to compete once again after lockdown. And this one is simply a visual breakdown of the 2021 income. But what it does show very clearly is that membership and horse registrations account for 49.6% of our income in 2021. Competitions are 21.6%, and training and education receipts 16.4%. So just to emphasise, half of our income comes from membership and horse registrations. Expenditure. There are four broad categories for expenditure in statutory accounts. The largest is the charitable activities, and this covers everything that BD spends directly on the sport of dressage. Support overheads relate to the administration of BD, staff, rent, communications, depreciation of assets, and the trading costs from British Dressage Trading. And if anybody looks in detail, they'll see that whilst these numbers are adjusted for stock held at the year end, these costs are lower than last year, but that's because 2020 included a write-off of old stock. So I'll just say that to avoid anybody asking me that question at the end. And then, of course, governance is self-explanatory. Governance relates to our audit fees and the costs of running the board. And then once again, the pie chart, which shows that all costs do remain well controlled, but 75% of all our expenditure is spent directly on the sport. The balance sheet at 31st December 2021 shows that BD had total assets of just under 2.5 million and held 3.08 million in investments, cash and deposits at the year end, prior to meeting liabilities in excess of 1.25 million. The value of the fixed assets has decreased as the costs of investment in our IT system are written off over a 3-year period, and the planned amortisation in the year substantially exceeded any new additions. So before we move on to the reserve, just a brief summary of 2022 to date, as we're already over 9 months into 2022. The strong recovery post-pandemic, record membership and horse registration levels have continued. And with a full year of competition activity, we are again forecasting a surplus for 2022. From the 1st of July 2022, we introduced a reduction in starter levies charged to venues to offset the increases which we'd put in for judge payments, so that the cost of that was borne by BD and not by the venues. The cost of living crisis, particularly high fuel and energy costs, has an impact on disposable income for all members, as well as venues, officials, staff and volunteers, and we remain very mindful of that in all our financial planning. But our current figures show a circa 11% reduction in participation levels on a per member basis. This is fully understandable in the current economic situation, but we are monitoring that closely. And as some of you, or most of you will know, BD has made a pledge to freeze member subscription prices for 2023 at the current levels. So I'm now turning to the reserves held by BD. At last year's AGM, I explained the rationale for holding reserves, and the following is now in place. We've done a review of BD's reserves policy to ensure that this reflects the charity's strategic planning, budget forecasting and risk management processes. The board agreed a policy to maintain free reserves in the range of 6 to 12 months defined operating expenditure. And we've defined operating expenditure includes staff salaries, fixed overhead costs, and other costs that would continue in a force majeure situation. So the financial outcome for 2021 was strong, closing with the free financial reserves of 2.5 million, a 7% increase, representing about 8 months of defined operating costs. However, as I've already said, the board has committed to reinvesting reserves into the sport, and we are looking at allocating circa £250,000 initially to fund targeted initiatives. These reserves, this £250,000, will be placed in designated funds set aside for specific projects to support the sport at all levels. This will include bursary funding for training and education programmes, additional support for regional activities, and investment in competitions at all levels. And we're committing to each year any surplus reserves to be added to these designated funds. And our CEO, Jason, will give further details on the proposed designated funds, the details of those in his report. But as I said at the start of the presentation, the board is committed to a substantial and ongoing reinvestment into the sport. So in advance of the formal receipt of the 21 financial statements, I should state that Mazars, our independent auditors, were willing to attend this evening, but we agreed mutually that it was not necessary, as they were happy with the detailed, clean audit report contained in the financial statements. The full statutory accounts are available online and have now been filed at Companies House and with the Charity Commission. And I would say that if there are any post-AGM questions on the accounts or on finance, then please do contact me via the office. And finally, I'd like to say thank you to all our members for your continued loyal support. We can't do it without you. To our volunteers for your invaluable contributions, which of course don't show in the accounts, but again, we couldn't do it without you. To BD's senior management and dedicated team of staff, to our finance team and members of the Finance and Business Development Committee who assist in exercising good governance and financial control. And I'd particularly like to thank Claire Preston, our financial controller, and the finance team and the auditors at Mazars for all their hard work in producing the 2021 annual report. And I can confirm that we've received no further questions on the accounts from members, and so I will now hand back to our Chief Executive, Jason Broughtingham. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Caroline. So that brings us to our first ordinary resolution. So for our first ordinary resolution, I propose that the financial statements, together with the Director's report and the Auditor's report for the period ended 31st of December 2021 be received. Please could I have votes for? And any votes against, please? I can confirm that on a show of hands, all members present voted in favour of the resolution. We also received 16 proxy votes with unanimous support again in favour. Therefore, I declare this resolution duly carried. Under our second ordinary resolution, we would like to propose that Mazars are reappointed as auditors of British Dressage and authorise the board to fix their remuneration. So once again, could I have votes please for? And any votes against? Again, I can confirm that on a show of hands, all members present voted in favour of the resolution. Again, we received 16 proxy votes with unanimous support in favour, and therefore I declare the resolution is duly carried. Now we move on to our special business, and there is just one special resolution, which is item 3 on the notice of AGM, which is the approval and adoption of the new Articles of Association for British Dressage. A copy of the proposed new Articles of Association with a marked up document for comparison purposes has been on the British Dressage website since Thursday the 8th of September. However, I'd like to take this opportunity to provide a little bit more background on the proposed changes this year. Now, in recent years, you'll be aware that we have updated the Articles of Association to reflect best practice in accordance with the Code of Sports Governance, published by UK Sport and Sport England. Now, it's vitally important that the BD Board of Directors continues to attract high-caliber individuals with the right level of knowledge, skills and experience to represent members and ensure that the sport is governed effectively. The introduction of a nominations committee has provided greater scrutiny over the director nominations process, including the appointment of extra directors for specific areas of expertise, and members also now have a binding vote for all director positions, regardless of whether or not the candidates stand unopposed. This means that the members have the option to actively reject or choose none of the candidates that are put forward. Now, the changes that we are proposing to the Articles of Association this year will further strengthen our governance standards by allowing for the appointment of a deputy chair from within the board. Now, this will normally be one of the extra directors who can provide additional oversight and expertise in areas that complement the skill set and background of the appointed chair, as well as providing additional support for the chief executive and senior management team. Now, while we didn't need to formally amend the Articles of Association to make this change, the BD board agreed that this was the right approach in the interests of openness and transparency. When the appointment of a deputy chair is confirmed by the board, the decision will then be formally communicated via the BD website. So that's an explanation of our special resolution. Could I now please ask for votes for this special resolution? First of all, again, votes for. Thank you very much. And any votes against? I can confirm that once again, on a show of hands, all members present voted in favour of this special resolution. With the 16 proxy votes, all of those were also in favour of the resolution and no votes were registered against. I can therefore declare that this resolution is carried again by unanimous decision. Now we come to the part of the AGM where we announce our director election results. And this is the final part of the formal business of this year's AGM. We held a number of elections for our board this year. First of all, following the very sad and premature death of our chair, Linda Whetstone, in December last year, we held a competitive election for a new chair. We also invited nominations for Judges Director and International Director, where both the current post holders were eligible for a second term. After a formal review of applications by the Nominations Committee, 2 candidates were put forward to the membership vote for chair, with an electronic ballot carried out independently by my voice. In total, 1,970 votes were cast, with the results as follows. Jill Day received 1,150 votes, representing a 58.4% share, and Claire Moyer received 820 votes, which is 41.6%. I can therefore formally declare that Jill Day is duly elected as the new chair of British Dressage, with effect from today's AGM announcement. So a very warm congratulations to Jill, who is here this evening. I'll just introduce Jill Day. Very well done, Jill, and we're all very much looking forward to working with you. For the position of Judges Director, I can confirm that only one nomination was received, and therefore the current post holder, Peter Storr, was put forward to the membership vote unopposed. In total, 1,835 votes were cast, with 96.9% in favour of the appointment, so I can confirm that Peter Storr is duly re-elected for a second term as Judges Director. Obviously, Peter's not here this evening, he's at Hoyes, but congratulations to Peter. For the position of International Director, I can again confirm that only one nomination was received, and therefore the current post holder, Judy Harvey, was put forward to the membership unopposed. In total, 1,864 votes were cast, with 98.2% in favour of the appointment, so I can confirm that Judy Harvey is duly re-elected for a second term as International Director. Well done, Judy. So congratulations to both Peter and Judy. You've both done a tremendous job during your first term in office, and we're looking forward to working with you both for a further 4 years. Now, before we conclude the formal business of the AGM, I just wanted to take this opportunity to clarify the current position with regards to our extra director appointments. In December last year, following the sad and untimely passing of Linda Whetstone, the BD Board appointed our current Finance Director, Caroline Godfrey, as interim chair. Caroline has held this post for the last 9 months to provide continuity at board level and allow us sufficient time in order to advertise and appoint and elect a new chair. In accordance with the BD Articles of Association, the Finance Director role was due to transition from a member-elected to board-appointed position from this year's AGM. However, to ensure that we didn't have too many director positions up for member election in one go, we didn't want to have too many up for nomination, and the BD Board agreed therefore to extend Caroline's tenure as Finance Director by reappointing her in an interim capacity for a 12-month period, and that's with effect from today. The board-appointed Finance Director and Business Development Director will therefore both be advertised in 2023, with the current post holders eligible for a second term in office. We are also currently advertising for an extra director with specific HR and legal expertise. You may have seen that on the BD website. Further details are available online, with applications closing on the 30th of October and interviews taking place in early November. We're hoping to make this appointment before the end of the year. So that concludes the formal business of this year's AGM. So I will now hand you back to Caroline Godfrey, who will now give a brief overview in her capacity as interim chair.
And I promise you it will be brief because I've talked quite enough already. But good evening again. So this is just a flavour of BD's activity and happily an acknowledgement of a really successful year in 2022 so far. But obviously it wasn't all positive. In January, we were just coming to terms with the loss of our much respected and loved chair, Linda Whetstone, in December 2021. And we also heard of the death of the previous chair, Penny Pollard. And many tributes have been paid to them both, and their lasting legacies within BD, albeit in very different ways, remain a tribute to their immense contribution to our sport. And it's only right also that I should say that in September we mourned the loss of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, who, as well as being our monarch for over 70 years, was a lifelong supporter of equestrianism in all its forms. And at the Nationals in Somerford, we contributed to the Equestrian Book of Condolences and celebrated her lifetime love of the horse. And Her Majesty will be much missed by everyone within the British dressage community. So, just some headlines for 2022. After 2 turbulent years of disruption caused by the pandemic, we continue to experience a really good recovery and strong growth. And this year has seen new record levels for our membership numbers and horse registrations, beating the previous highs of January 2018. And thankfully, this year we've managed to run 2 complete uninterrupted seasons with full winter and summer programmes back in place, and long may this continue. However, whilst membership remains buoyant, we're mindful that our many stakeholders also now face financial challenges with the current cost of living crisis, with high inflation driven by fuel costs and the current market uncertainty, and increased interest rates. We therefore introduced a number of initiatives at the halfway point of the year to provide additional financial support to venues and officials. Starter levies charged to venues were reduced, with minimum payment levels removed altogether, while the basic rate for judge payments was increased from £1 per starter to £1.25 or £1.50, depending on the list level of the judge. And we remain committed, as I've already said, to looking at further initiatives to support all our stakeholders through the reinvestment of our reserves and a pledge to hold membership subscriptions at their current levels in 2023. But turning to the sport, it was a very busy summer of championships. A phenomenal 13 medals were won at World and European Championships over the course of the summer by our senior, para and under-21 teams. The BD National Championships were held very successfully at Summit for a second year, and we're delighted to be here again at Arena UK for the Summer Area Festival Championships. So returning to our incredible medal success, our senior team won Team Silver at the FEI World Championships in Herning, with Lottie Fry, of course, crowned world champion after winning 2 individual gold medals. The paras won 7 individual medals in total, 3 silver and 4 bronze between the 4 riders across the 3 grades represented. The juniors won team bronze at the FEI Under-21 Europeans at Hartpury in July, the first team medal won by that age group since 1998, as well as Annabella Pidgley winning individual silver and bronze medals. So we were just 1 medal short of last year's record total of 14 overall, and well done to all who took part in all the international championships. But let's not forget our 4th places. For our para team at the World Championships in Herning, securing the all-important qualifications for Paris 2024. For our brilliant pony team at the Europeans in Poland, and our young rider team and Jessica McConkey individually also at the Europeans in Hartpury. That's an awful lot of 4th places, which I think we can add on to our medals quite successfully. Also close to the medal zone, but once again demonstrating how competitive we are across all of our age groups. And huge congratulations too to everyone who has competed in the year in so many different competitions and at so many different levels, national, regional, Pet Plan Quest, and so on. Whatever the result, I hope that taking part and learning together with your equine partner was a positive and rewarding experience. And you've got on screen a summary of the International Championship medals won. And it really does look very impressive when you see it like that. So finally, as I end my term as interim chair, I'd like to say thank you to the board and to Jason, Ben and the senior management team for all their hard work over the last year. It is very much appreciated. And of course, I wish Jill all the very best as she takes over as chair. As I mentioned under finance earlier, we are grateful for all our members, new and long-standing, as well as our officials, organisers, owners, breeders, and of course our staff and volunteers. It is as a team working all together that we progress our sport, and this has never been more apparent than in the last few difficult years. So here's to our continued success as a sport at all levels of participation. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Caroline. And may I take this opportunity on behalf of the BD Board of Directors and all of the team of staff at British Dressage to sincerely thank Caroline for taking on the vital role of interim chair at such a difficult time for British Dressage. We really do appreciate you stepping in and managing the organisation in such an effective and efficient way while we waited the outcome of the election process for a new chair. So I'll move on now to my Chief Exec's report and look back at the last 12 months since we last met here at the AGM. And I'm going to start with no apologies right at the top of our sport with our double world champion, Lottie Fry. A new superstar for British Dressage, and it's when you see all of her achievements listed here on this screen that you can see what a phenomenal young talent we have. We are very privileged to have such a fantastic new ambassador for our sport. So many medals achieved over various different championships in just a short space of time, all by the age of 26. It's quite incredible, really, when you think about where we've come from as a sport. When you look back to pre-London days, when we look back to all of those years we had teams competing at the Europeans, the Worlds, the Olympics, but without a sniff of a medal, and yet riding the crest of a wave from London through to Rio, through to Tokyo and beyond, and the future looking very, very promising. You may remember at previous AGMs, I've stood here and say, everything feeds from the top down. That's why I was here in the first place. It's how I became Chief Executive. In the wake of London, I wanted to be part of this success story because I truly believe that there was huge potential for the future of the sport. And we are still managing to ride that crest of a wave 10 years on. And the talent continues to come through, as Caroline was pointing out with the medals that we've won this summer. But we are very, very lucky and fortunate to, again, have the likes of Lottie flying the flag for Great Britain. Now, why is that so important? When you look at the championship coverage that we've gained on social media, this just gives you a snapshot of how British Dressage compared against national governing bodies over that World Championship week from the 8th to the 15th of August. Now, interestingly, we had show jumping there also in Herning, along with cycling and triathlon, who had their European Championships over the weekend of the 13th and 14th of August. And when you look at the level of engagement that we had on Facebook, we had more engagement than cycling, show jumping and triathlon combined. I mean, that's phenomenal. You know, that's just wonderful to see. And you can see there as well the amount of engagement that we had on Twitter. Although a lot of our content and activity focuses on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok and YouTube, during championships there's real value in Twitter with fast results and real-time news updates producing some very successful results. So it's really impressive, but you can see how important it is. The medals that we win on the international stage really do shine the spotlight on our sport and attract more people to want to get involved and want to be the next Charlotte or the next Lottie. And that is why we've continued to enjoy this membership growth. And yes, you know, we don't take it for granted, but wow, we've been seriously impressed with how enthusiastically everyone has embraced dressage in the post-pandemic period. Membership numbers have now reached record levels this year, surpassing our previous record from January 2018. And we now have over 18,150 current active members. To put that into context, that's 1,000 more than this time last year. It's 30% up on the lowest point of the pandemic. So that really does go to show how everyone has really enthusiastically embraced the sport in the last 12 to 18 months. Horse registrations also continue to rise and have reached their highest ever levels, with over 16,700 horses currently registered. And the membership and participation has continued to grow ever since we resumed activity in the second quarter of last year. It's really encouraging to see new members joining BD for the first time, as well as many lapsed members returning to the saddle too. But it's important that we understand your needs as a membership, and so therefore we conducted some membership forums earlier in the year in May 2022, and this will be followed by a full survey before the end of the year so we can get further feedback about the competitor and member experience so we can continue to improve what we provide to you, our members. But you can see this strong recovery period filters through obviously into the starter numbers that we have in the arena as well. Obviously we have compared here to 2019, which was the last year pre-pandemic, as well as 2020 and 21, where we did have the numbers impacted by COVID. So you can see in year one of the pandemic, we had 2 lockdowns in quarter 2 and quarter 4. The summer season had to be abandoned in its entirety. And then in year 2 of the pandemic, we had a 12-week lockdown in the whole of the first quarter, which resulted in the loss of a third of our fixtures. But now the good news is we're back up for the first 9 months of this year to over 100,000 physical starters down the centre line, 109,718 to be exact, which is not far short of where we were for the same period in 2019, which is fantastic. A total of 2,314 competitions held from the 1st of January to the 30th of September 2022. And that's as a result of a full fixture calendar. It's been fantastic to return to a full undisrupted winter and summer season. We've had a total of 14,333 qualifications sent to competitors this year for our winter and summer regionals, as well as our area festival championships. So that just goes to show how many people have embraced not just the return to the sport, but getting involved in our flagship headline championships too. And the summer championships here at Arena UK have been a phenomenal success over the last 2 years. It's been a really busy calendar of major events this summer, as Caroline said, with the European, World and National Championships all taking place within a short 8-week window. And of course our grassroots competitors still have the Area Festival Summer Championships here, as well as Quest and Associated to come. We've announced our 2023 major dates, and there's a new 3-year cycle for regionals and area festivals. Work remains ongoing for developing our domestic international CDI calendar for next year, but that's developing well, and we hope to have some confirmation of that once we've had FEI approval on the 1st of December. Moving on to training and education, this has been a big area of investment and development over the last few years with British Dressage, but particularly during the pandemic. Work didn't stop behind the scenes at any point. And one of the most important projects that we've been working on in recent years, as you're aware, is our judge education system. That is now fully launched, and I'm delighted to say that 786 judges have already registered in total. The first online examinations under the new system will be taking place this autumn. And we're very grateful to the support of Black Horse One, who've helped us working in partnership to develop the technology that underpins the new judge education system. But we also want to thank all of our judges and officials for embracing this new system wholeheartedly as well. And you can see that judge training and activity and engagement has increased by 15% versus pre-pandemic. We've had over 500 judges attending online seminars by the end of this year. So again, that just shows how the world has changed in just a short period of time, from going from those in-person training sessions to now being able to conduct those training sessions and examinations and assessments online now via Zoom. And it really has moved the sport forward significantly. We're setting new benchmarks and standards for judge training across the world. We also launched new bespoke coach packages this spring, incorporating our new CPD activity and insurance options. That was launched earlier this year, and we've had over 180 coaches already signed up. And just this summer, we've launched a new BD apprenticeship scheme as well, in partnership with Sport Structures, and that will help to support the development of our dressage workforce. So hopefully gives you a flavour of how we're reinvesting back into the sport for the benefit of all participants. It's worth talking about our marketing initiatives as well to help promote the sport to that wider audience. Starting with our national championships, you'll see that we created a new brand identity and logo for the national championships this year, but we continued our efforts to go digital. We have had QR code and signage offering easy access to all the online digital content, and that included obviously the online live scoring and results, as well as access to the national radio or online digital program, as well as the BD Fan Zone coverage. The BD website homepage takeover resulted in 27,000 interactions. And look at these numbers. Additional online content from the BD Fan Zone, we had 100,858 reach on Facebook Live, which is just quite phenomenal, and over 35,000 minutes have been viewed to date. That number continues to increase as people continue to watch that via our YouTube channel. Coverage across all of our digital platforms have had new video content as well, which has increased engagement, and I'll talk about that a bit more shortly. The marketing team have also worked hard to support all of the training and education initiatives, and that includes the launch of the coach packages and BD apprenticeships I just mentioned, as well as further support for the judge education pathways, our youth development, and BD horse care programs. I mentioned the digital content. We've seen a huge growth in all of our British Dressage social media platforms. We're trying to make sure that we want to represent the stories of riders at all levels. So that's from Quest right the way up to our world-class athletes. You'll see that we produced YouTube series online, Going for Gold and Ride to the Regionals, focusing on those stories behind the scenes to try and tell the stories of our riders. We also launched a new channel this year. We've embraced TikTok for the first time, which I must say baffles me completely, but I'm assured that it actually helps to engage with a new, younger audience. And as part of that, we've produced some additional short-form video content at our major events, and that shares rider stories in a real visual format using short-form reels, and that, as I say, does engage with a very active younger audience on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. You may remember that in 2021, we launched our strategic plan to take us from Tokyo through to Paris. That was a year delayed due to the pandemic. I just wanted to remind you of the 5 key pillars of that strategy, because everything that we do falls into one of these categories. In terms of competition, we want to provide competition and championship opportunities for all, from grassroots through to Grand Prix. We want to increase participation to make dressage accessible to as wide an audience as possible. Education to provide training and development opportunities for everyone. Promotion to increase awareness and understanding of the sport, generating more interest in dressage at all levels. And in terms of governance, to set high standards and ensure that the sport is run professionally, efficiently, and effectively. And I'm proud to say that I think we're making some fantastic progress in all 5 of those areas. I think you can see with some of the initiatives that we've delivered in the last 12 months, how we are continuing to really drive the sport forward. And as Caroline said, as part of that, we want to continue reinvesting into the sport, and therefore we will have designated funds set up to reinvest our reserves. I want to give you a flavour of what some of those designated funds will look like. We want to focus on our competitions and venues by providing additional targeted support at all levels of the sport, from grassroots initiatives right the way through to domestic international competition. On the training and education side, Caroline mentioned that we'll be looking at bursary support for riders, judges, stewards and coaches to support their CPD activity, and hopefully finally launch a mentoring program, which has been something we've been keen to do for a number of years. In terms of youth development, we've obviously got our academies and our apprenticeship scheme that we've launched this summer, but we're looking to build upon those and again add in more mentoring and CPD activity, and there will be bursaries available to underpin those too. In terms of our power activities, we want to expand that to make sure that we are truly inclusive for all. Support for the development of our para pathways, yes, but we want other equality, diversity and inclusion initiatives as well to expand participation and accessibility across all of equestrianism. We want to reinvest in the community. I think this is really important. When I've been on the road this year, I've heard a lot from members talking about, as the sport has grown and got bigger and bigger, what they're missing now is what we can do more at local level. And I think what we need to do is go right the way back to basics and look at what we can do within our community at both local, regional, as well as national level. So looking at more outreach initiatives to make people feel included, make them feel part of the sport, make them feel part of that community, whether that's through social activities and events, or indeed other ways in which we can get involved together and share best practice as a community. And of course, we need to do more analysis and evaluation as well to really understand the trends in our sport as we've grown, as participation has grown. We need to have more data research, more insight that will help us to inform our decision making. So we've got a 2-day board meeting next week, and on the second day, we'll be spending half of the day actually discussing this in much more detail. But this will give you a flavour of how we're looking at reinvesting those reserves into the designated funds next year and beyond. And as Caroline said, we're talking about substantial sums here, but hopefully everyone will see the benefit in some way, shape or form. And with that, I will hand over to our Chief Operating Officer, Ben Waterhouse, who will give you an overview of the organisation in the last 12 months.
Thanks, Jason. I'm going to be quite brief because I think that's my car alarm going off in the car park. So good evening, everyone. My name is Ben Waterhouse. We've been pleased to make several operational improvements across the business over the course of the last year. And over the next few slides, I'll try and give you a flavour and a summary of some of the areas that have been progressed since the last time we met. In IT, we continued our investment in the development of BD Online to provide additional functionality and reporting capability. One particular area of focus over the last few months has been the launch of our training education database, which has seen functionality developed for the internal management of our coaches, judges, stewards and youth participants. Following on from the completion of this major project, we'll be moving on to the development of an API for those venues who do not use the Horsemonkey system for entries. To give it its full techie title, it's Application Programming Interface for any geeks out there. This will provide a communication path between BD Online and these other entry providers, such as My Riding Life and Equo. This will provide a seamless pathway where results from our venues can be electronically fed into the system without the need for manual intervention. It will ensure results are processed and live on the system as quickly as possible, and once they've been checked and verified by our team. Member engagement remains a huge priority for us, and we conducted 5 member forums earlier this year in May, as Jason's already outlined. This is also covered in Suzanne's video shortly, so I'm not going to steal her thunder. British Dressage is committed to a greener and more sustainable future, both for the organisation and as a sport. And we published our initial sustainability statement on the BD website earlier this year in June. To further inform and shape our efforts in this area, we commissioned a project over the summer months, which resulted in a sustainability report with a series of recommendations that the board will be discussing in more detail next week. Once the action plan is finalised, we will share the recommendations and initiatives with our members before the end of the year. 2022 has been the first normal year, as we've mentioned a couple of times already, since we restructured our regions and realigned the role of our development officers. It's been very pleasing to see how our staff and the regional committees have embraced these changes and have gone on to deliver another strong year in terms of regional participation. Highlights have included a 52% increase in flexi training across the UK and a 37% rise in senior training activity, as well as continuing development and growth across para, youth, coaches and judges. We were also really pleased to see the return of a full schedule of regional team competitions, where the senior and youth interregionals, plus the Para Home International, all took place for the first time since 2019. We had 498 riders taking part across 129 teams in these competitions. So I wanted to place on record a huge thank you to our staff and the regional reps for making these events happen, as well as the fantastic teams at our host venues of Bishop Burton, Bury Farm, Bicton Arena, and here at Arena UK. During 2022, we welcomed the following staff to the team at BD. Claire Preston joined our team at the start of the year as Financial Controller. Claire's here this evening. Kat Griffiths joined our Sport Operations team at Head Office. Ashley Stewart took over the reins as Development Officer for Scotland. Claire Stockley and Faye Bamford were both added to our Training and Education team. Beth Hancock and Louise Garner-Tierney joined our membership team. Amy Dine was appointed as Executive Assistant to the CEO and COO and the board, while Steve Mills, Lizzie Dodd and Anna Lowndes provided additional support for our IT, marketing and finance teams respectively. Gold star if you can read all the names on this really small slide. So this is the organisation chart as it is now, and this is available on the website. So again, if you can't read it right here and now, please visit the website and it's on there. And it gives you a good indication of our staffing structure across all of our various departments. In the middle of the COVID crisis, staff numbers were as low as 32 at one point, as we aim to manage our costs and our overheads while our income streams were impacted by the pandemic. Thanks to our recovery and record levels of membership, we've rebuilt the team back up to pre-pandemic levels of 40 staff, so we can provide high standards of customer service to our members across all the regions and all areas of the organisation as the sport continues to grow. So the org chart on screen sort of details how these staff are distributed across the different departments of marketing, membership, sport operations, training education, regional, finance, IT, and as there are several new names, this will be available online after the AGM. Here's the thank you bits, which is always good. So we couldn't develop as a sport or business without the vital input of our volunteers and committees. So I wanted to place on record our huge thanks and appreciation to our valued volunteers, but particularly to those who are finishing their terms with us in 2022. From our technical committees, these include Andrea, Isla, Ros and Leanne. From our regional committees, Vicky, Caroline, Alison, Jean, Mark, Lottie, Pip, Caroline, Eve, Tracy and Jane. Many of these individuals have supported us for 4 or 8 year terms in their current positions. So on behalf of the BD board and our staff, a huge thank you for everything you've done for BD. With Lottie and Vicky moving on after completing 2 4-year terms as regional chairs, we're really pleased to welcome Katie and Sarah, who have been appointed as the new chairs for the South and East and North and East regions, respectively. Finally, we are currently recruiting for a number of key roles across the sport. These include a finance supervisor to join the head office team under Claire, plus key volunteer roles, including a HR and legal director, as Jason's mentioned, who will be an appointment to the board, 3 international selectors for our senior para and under-21 teams, and a coaching rep for Wales. If you're interested in any of these positions, then please go to the vacancies part of the BD website for details on how to register interest. Thank you, and I'll now hand back to Jason.
Well, thank you very much, Ben. Now, we've often been told that it's a bit like death by PowerPoint at our AGMs, so we thought we'd try something new this year. Rather than call up each of the directors to do their own individual presenters, we've actually recorded some videos. Mostly, this was recorded back at the National Championships, but we'll hear from Simon, Judy, Tracy, and the rest of the board as it all goes dark. And I will sit down and you can be entertained as they give you a summary of everything that they've been working on in terms of their projects and initiatives in the last 12 months.
Good afternoon. I'm Simon Bates, Sports Operations Director of British Dressage. We're finding ourselves in a normal year again, with starter numbers and membership numbers back where they were before COVID. And we now need to just move the sport and consolidate things as things get a bit tighter for people. Well, as well as the Sports Operations Committee meeting regularly, we've split and had 2 subcommittees form as well. We have a fixtures committee which is looking at the number of competitions that we hold, the number of venues, and also ensuring that those shows are close enough to people, that we have enough shows that the venues keep the numbers up, but also that the riders can get to the shows because they're not too far away from them. The second committee that we've got in sport operations is the Silver Working Group, which looks at how we develop the pathways between the regional route for Silver and the area festival route, and add a little bit more clarity for people so that the riders, it becomes more obvious to members whether they should be aiming for regionals or whether the area festivals and regionals are both options for them. We're looking across the whole sport. We're looking at Quest as well and how we develop Quest. This is now a 12-month offering for people with a winter league table coming in. And then in the summer for the main competition structure, we've moved away from regional league tables to venue-focused league tables. This has allowed us to move to a structure that fits where our members are, the accessibility of competitions, and it's also enabled us to match up the number of semi-finals that we have with the number of riders out there, rather than just being restricted by the number of regions we have. It's been great to get back to normal, to have a full year of sports and very few interruptions to it.
Yes, it was an amazing time. It was an interesting build-up to the World Championships because, of course, we lost Carl Hester's ride, and we all thought, what the heck are we going to do? We've got to run with a team without Carl, and would that affect our medal potential? And in fact, it all worked out splendidly, as they say, because we had 4 fabulous riders who all performed to their best, and we were within a smidgen of getting the gold medal, and it was really down to very, very small mistakes from each rider, very, very small mistakes, which ended us up in the silver team position. But then to go on from there, we had the most fantastic boost with Lottie Fry and the amazing Glamourdale, owned by the Van Olsts, who completely blew the whole world away with their incredible performances, both in the Grand Prix Special and also in the freestyle, which she did to amazing music with a real British theme, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house, so really wonderful success at that show. The team in Hungary had a little bit of a tricky time because we only sent initially a team of 3 who achieved the minimum requirements on our selection policy, and then we lost one due to unfortunate incidents with papers, but the other 2, it was such a shame we didn't get the 3rd one there, because the other 2 really rode very well and exceeded our expectations. So onwards and upwards for the future, and the good thing is that we've got championships in Hungary next year, so it's an excellent recce for next year, and we've got lots of information back about hotels and journeys and things, so we can do a really good hit at the championships next year. The home advantage is enormous. Apart from the fact the horses don't have to travel very far, but just being able to do a proper recce, the horses are all familiar with the surroundings, the riders are all familiar with the surroundings. Tremendous support from the British public, which is exactly what we need for our teams. And we achieved 4th position for the young riders team, and they really upped their game, and they all rode with supreme confidence, and I was immensely proud of them. They did a great job. If you think back to last year, we had 2 individuals. This time we sent a full-on team, and again they were just outside the medal zone, but all contributed to that success and did a fantastic job. She did very well. I think it was quite a steep learning curve for her. It's her first proper international abroad, and she's got a fantastic horse, and I think that experience will hold her in good stead for the future. So we're looking forward to great things from that partnership as well. It was very complicated with the World Breeding Championships. The new rules meant that selection was very difficult. There's new regulations. The horses have to be registered with a British Breeding Society to compete for Great Britain. But we sent some good horses, and they all achieved great things, and slightly cheating because Lottie Fry actually rides for the Netherlands at the World Breeding Championships, but she had a Union flag against her name in the programme and on the TV, so we'll take that, because she won the 7-year-old championship with Kiento again. So we're very happy with the results from that, and going forward in a few years' time, when we've got the situation with Brexit and the rules sorted out, we'll have all our horses now have to be registered with British Breeding Societies, so going forwards we'll have lots more to pick from. Paris, here we come. We've got great horses, we've got a great team, and onwards and upwards and full of excitement for next year.
A year ago, I started my role as para director, and I know it's a cliche, but I don't know where that time has gone. During 2022, we have had considerable medal success at the World Championships, and we also gained that all-important team qualification for Paris. But Paris is not just about the medals, it is about the entire community. And I feel that now it is important that all of our riders have the opportunity to train and compete and achieve their personal goals. So behind the scenes, we mapped out where riders, venues and judges were across all the country. This highlighted that there were some gaps that needed filling. So we have been seeking more venues to bring them on board where those gaps are in the country. And hopefully by the time we get to 2023, you will all have an equal opportunity to compete. A group of colleagues and myself have been working on new bronze tests. The bronze tests are vitally important for those paras starting out on their competition journey. They will be available in the second half of 2023, and we are seeking to pilot them so that people have a chance to get to know the tests and ride them. We now have pathways for our judges, stewards and coaches to ensure that they're properly trained and have the knowledge to support the para community. This is obviously still work in progress, but we will continue to adapt and evolve and ensure that you are all supported. As I look forward to the 2023 season, I am hoping that we continue to grow as we have this year and that you all have a chance to fulfil those personal goals. There is still more that we can improve, and I will be seeking to do so over the coming years. I'm always happy to receive comments and feedback, so if you see me at a competition, then please do approach me and ask me any questions that you may have. Or alternatively, email me or Natasha in the office and put your suggestions forward. In the meantime, I wish you all the success possible in your para journey, and I look forward to seeing you in 2023.
Hello, I'm Peter Storr. I'm the BD Judges Director. Well, it's far exceeded our expectations, really. We've had 800 registered already, and it's going really well. In addition to the Judges Education System, we also have added a young horse module, a para module, and a music module. And the Principles of Judging seminar has always gone down very well and very popular. Looking forward to 2023, we'll be having the Principles of Judging seminar, and also we're using data from the Black Horse online seminars to find out judges' strengths and weaknesses. It is great to be back judging again after COVID and getting back into live seminars again. It's been great and it's very exciting. We're really pleased with the uptake so far in our new system, and we're looking forward to improving all judges throughout the levels.
We've launched a new coaches package which has got a range of benefits, ranging from a very basic coaches registration through to a full package with insurance. We felt that after the COVID crisis, the coaches needed further support. We want to provide the best value for our coaches when it comes to CPD, insurance and compliance things such as safeguarding and first aid courses. We want to provide a range of coach resources through our Coaches Hub that coaches can then use for this CPD purposes, the content of which will be really quite targeted, and through the coaches package these CPD resources will be discounted to our registered coaches. We want our BD coaches to be the absolute best they can be. We want to make sure that our members have access to the very best coaching that they can get. And as with any profession, there are always areas in which we can all improve. We want to be able to target these areas for development for our coaches, and within the CPD provision, we hope we can fill these gaps and upskill our coaches going forwards. BD has taken the lead in a cross-federation approach to the National Development Programme for Coaching Excellence. We've got 25 coaches on that programme from across the BEF, with many member bodies taking part in it. We also have got 2 further candidates have come forward to take their UKCC Level 4, with 2 further that are about to graduate this year. We've also, due to the expansion of the BDCC programme, seen the need to take on further coach educators, and this year we've launched a development programme and we're working with 5 further coach educators to join the workforce soon. I think within the CPD bracket there will be a range of activities there that are less formal towards more formal. Some will be registered certified CBT activities, others will be informal, so there is a range there. Also looking forward, we've got the National Convention coming up. We've invested a lot of resources within the National Convention. We're looking forward to working with Gareth Hughes and Mike Alberg, again with hopefully a structured, targeted programme by which all of our coaches and members can learn.
Hi, my name's Claire Moyer and I'm the British Dressage Youth Director, and I just really want to check in and let you know what's been happening with BD Youth over the last year. The main development, we are producing a new British Dressage apprenticeship programme. This is to replace DICE and ACE. The entry level age is 16 and it's open to everybody, so if you've had a career outside dressage and you want to come back to it, have a look at it. It's going to be individually tailored to people, so if you want to be a competitor, if you want to be involved in running a business within the industry, we can tailor the programme to you. There's a level 2 or a level 3. The level 2 runs over 12 months, the level 3 runs over 18 months. And you have to be based in a professional yard. We've had a huge interest in this already, and lots of professional yards are wanting to get involved, so it's a really exciting programme. So that's the main thing that's been happening, developing that. We're also cracking on with the horse care, and we are training assessors and people delivering the practical elements of this, and that'll be rolled out the end of this year. And then tiers 4 and 5, which are the highest tiers we're doing, we're going to complete by the end of next year. So the horse care is really coming together as well. We've had fantastic success this year, as you all know, at the European Championships, and it's been marvellous. And the main pleasure for me is that we have had academy riders from our foundation and national academies proving their worth, going through our system, and this year India Derma Mills was a medalist in the junior team, and that's our first medalist that's come through the academy system. So congratulations to everybody there. It was a marvellous week and everyone did so well, and it was super to see that our training programmes are bearing fruit and riders coming through there are proving really successful at that level. We've also had academy riders now going on to the coaching programmes in the level 2, and so they're proving that it's an overall development programme for our youth riders and people who want to be involved in the industry. Because the main thing about BD Youth, it's an educational process, and we want to make sure that riders come in at age 6, they go through our regional system, they enjoy their teams, they come through into our national system, and then we can nurture people to get into all different aspects of this sport. You don't just have to be a rider. There are so many other avenues you can get involved with, and we need those people to stay engaged with the sport throughout. So lots has been happening in BD Youth, and the plans for next year, obviously to develop this apprenticeship and get it rolling out so that we get people, more and more people involved in that. and we're continuing to develop the academies. But we're also going to introduce a mentoring scheme for those people involved in our programmes. That has been the overwhelming thing that's come across to me speaking to people, that they require a bit of help from industry experts, whatever their choice of career within our sport, to help them get from our programmes and transition into the main workforce or as a competitor, whatever they want to do. And to have access to a really experienced mentor is going to be really valuable. So that's what we're going to actually produce next year. So lots happening, and we've had huge success this year, and roll on 2023.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Homewood, the Business Development Director. It's been a really amazing year for our membership, with over 18,000 members really enjoying being part of British Dressage, which is an absolute record for us. And really exciting that we've got our highest number of horses too, with over 16,500 registered and enjoying their time with British Dressage competing. It is, however, a challenging time, and the economic climate means that people are considering which competitions they're entering and where they're going, obviously keeping down their travel, which is very understandable. But we're really excited that so many people have decided to choose British Dressage as a membership organisation they're part of and enjoy their competition with us. And we look forward to obviously extending that into next year. I think it's also really exciting that for our British bred horses and the success we've recently had at the World Breeding Championships with Sadie and Swanmore Dantina, that we hopefully will see more British horses coming down the centre line as part of our membership organisation as well. What's really important to us is understanding what's important to you as a member and what you want from us now and in the future. So we held a number of forums around the country recently to ask questions particularly from our new members, from our grassroots riders, and those people who've been members with us for a long time and professional riders. We asked lots of questions about what they think about us, how we can improve, what needs to happen in the future. And we're going to use that to inform our wider membership questionnaire that we'll be sending out in October. And we really look forward to getting your feedback and understanding what it is you need from us going forwards.
Well, I hope you found that interesting and informative. It was nice to hear from our directors in a different way this year, to give us a summary of everything that they're working on in their individual areas. As you can see, there's an awful lot of work that's been undertaken in the last 12 months. So thank you to our BD board of directors. They do work extremely hard on your behalf, but please do remember they are volunteers. They give up all of this time for you. So please show your appreciation for everything that the BD board do on your behalf. Just before we move on to the end of this evening's session and we go through member questions, I just wanted to give a little plug for our national convention. Harry wouldn't let me go without actually giving this a good push. We have Generation BD as our theme this year. The national convention will take place at Hartpury again. It's going to be on the 26th and 27th of November. I'm delighted to say that we have two of our homegrown stars, Gareth Hughes and Michael Eilberg, and there'll also be some other special guests over the 2 days. Tickets are now on sale. They're on the BD website, so please do make sure you book your place there at Hartpury for the National Convention. And we'll spend 2 days looking at the best sustainable and welfare-focused training methods for horses and riders. That'll be from prelim level right the way through to Grand Prix. So there'll be something for everyone there as we look at what has made British Dressage unique in terms of our training methods over the last 5 to 10 years. So please do join us at Hartpury there in November. Right, now we move on to the final part of this evening, where we look at members' questions. We had 4 questions submitted in advance, and then there'll also be a chance to open it up to the floor. But I'll start off with the questions that have been formally submitted. Kate Nicol asked a question about music formats at BD competitions. She said, after having a CD fail at a regional championship, to only then find it working perfectly back in my lorry, it's frustrating to find this happening, not because of the actual CD, but to do with the venue's sound system. For the music classes, when can we move with the times and either email over the music file beforehand, or perhaps hand in a flash drive with the music already loaded? Now, this is a topic that has been raised on Facebook and featured recently in the Horse and Hound. Most of our venues do actually already offer alternative media formats for their music competitions. Members do need, however, to check with the venue in advance. They can see which format's available, and we can also see that information available on our schedules online. There are several variables that can affect the quality of the recording, which means that CDs can work on some systems and not others. Could be due to damaged or dirty CDs, corrupted files, the quality of the disc, or the sensitivity of the CD reader. So it's not only due to the quality of the equipment used. Although CDs are becoming perhaps a little outdated now, they are still often the easiest way to create and burn music for use in freestyle competition, so they remain the universal option for many of our members. We certainly wouldn't want to ban the use of these in competition currently, and it's important that members actually have the choice. There are various conversion adapters available relatively cheaply now on the market to enable MP3 files to be used over PA systems. But of course, whichever format is used, members still need to ensure that the data can be accessed across all platforms and devices, as organisers have encountered just as many problems with reading USB formats and corrupted MP3 files as they have with CD failures. Aside from the technology, we also need to ensure, of course, that the music complies with the licensing that we have in place when using MP3 files and any digital transfer, so there are no copyright infringements. Ideally, we agree that venues should test music prior to competition to flag up any issues in advance, so an alternative format can be used if necessary. However, this is clearly a time-consuming and laborious exercise when dealing with large numbers of competitors, so there are associated costs and resourcing issues for venues. Now, we will work closely with our organisers to make sure that the quality of the PA systems meet the requirements for music competition, and we want to be able to offer all formats at all venues. But ultimately, it's also the responsibility of members to ensure that the music has been tested in advance on multiple devices before they go out and compete. Our second question we had from Derek Pullum, who asked about providing more opportunities for riders to compete at CDI 1-star and 2-star level. He said, "The current international selection criteria is focused on selecting teams for 3-star and international team competition, and the eligibility criteria is rising due to the increased demand to compete. In France and Germany, 1-star and 2-star CDIs are relatively common, as they provide a route for the talented riders just below team level to gain international experience. Have BD considered encouraging Premier League shows to upgrade and host a CDI 1-star or 2-star alongside them?" So this is exactly the strategy we've been exploring with our major venues in the last couple of years, because we want to ensure that we have a range of opportunities that are available for all of our international riders, not just a small group of our elite riders and the senior team, but also our paras and also those riders who are developing at under 21 and under 25 level. However, the main consideration is financial, due to the fees and the costs involved with running FEI competitions. So working with venues like Hartpury, Wellington and Hickstead, we are exploring the feasibility of running CDI competition alongside or back-to-back with the Premier Leagues to make them more financially viable. Now, with KISO closing for development next year, we've been reworking our domestic international calendar. We hope to make those announcements shortly, but once this has been fully established, we will aim then to expand 3-star competitions to potentially look at introducing 1 and 2-star too, which will provide the venues with the flexibility to widen the pool of participants. We'll then be able to invite more riders and increase the numbers as the sport continues to evolve and grow. However, importantly, this still needs to complement the existing Premier League structure without diluting national competition. So as always, it's a balancing act, and it'll have to be underpinned by the analysis and evaluation that I talked about earlier to make sure that we provide competition opportunities for all, but at both national and international level, a balance needs to be achieved. With regards to our home-based CDI and CPEDI competitions, we do have exciting plans for next year, which we hope to confirm by the 1st of November, in line with the FEI approval process. For our third question, it's actually a group of questions that we had from various members regarding equine influenza. Several members asked for clarification over our equine influenza vaccination rules, so we'll take this opportunity to summarise the current situation. Last month, in response to a vaccine shortage across Europe, British Dressage and the FEI both confirmed that there would be a derogation of the 6-monthly booster requirement for equine influenza vaccinations. That's both for national and international competition. Please note that this is a temporary measure and it remains under review while we closely monitor the situation. Now, due to the vaccination rules that we had previously in place for British Dressage, there's actually a high level of immunity amongst those horses competing, providing a strong foundation and reducing the risk level overall. However, competition horses also mix more frequently with others, and of course we still need to ensure that there is a close regulatory alignment between us and the FEI, as well as other organisations like the BHA, where we share venues. This disease poses a serious risk to the equine population, and the 6-month booster rule was introduced after the major outbreak of EI in the winter of 2019 before the pandemic. And this was based on expert veterinary advice and in line with the FEI regulations. Now, although there is currently a lower prevalence of equine influenza in the UK currently, this is no reason for complacency, particularly as this comes after 2 years of relatively low activity and mixing of the horse population during the pandemic. Therefore, the current rule for EI vaccinations will remain mandatory every 12 months for all horses registered to compete with British Dressage. The FEI have suspended the 6-month rule from 1st of October 2022 through to the 31st of March 2023, but again, the annual requirement of every 12 months still remains in place. We will continue to work closely with the Equine Infectious Diseases Advisory Group and the British Equestrian Veterinary Association, who encourage all of our member bodies within the Federation to adopt the same vaccination standards in order to minimise the risks of the equine herd overall. Once the current situation with the vaccination shortage has been fully resolved, we will make a further announcement about the future, but please note that there will be no further changes now before the end of the year at the earliest. Further information, incidentally, on equine influenza is still available on the BD website, including a very useful Ask the Expert session with Jay Nixon, which gives the full background as to why vaccinations are so important to give protection for you and your horse. Now, a final member-submitted question, another one from Derek, who is here this evening, but he kindly provided the questions in advance. Derek also asked about whether British Dressage could share services with other member bodies across the Federation to provide synergistic savings. He said, "The separate national governing bodies for equestrian sport in the UK mean that many back-office functions and management positions are duplicated or triplicated. In Europe, where a single national governing body is the norm, the affiliation costs for competing in any or all 3 Olympic disciplines are similar to the costs of affiliation to one discipline in the UK. Given the cost of living crisis we find ourselves in, what measures are BD taking to share costs and initiatives and even resources and infrastructure with the other national governing bodies?" Well, this is something that's actually always been high on the agenda for British Dressage. And we always aim to find efficiencies and make synergistic savings wherever possible by working closely with our colleagues in the British Equestrian Federation, as well as British Show Jumping and British Eventing. However, the structure of equestrianism in the UK is very different to that on the continent. Whereas in Europe, there's no such thing as unaffiliated activity, and all competitions are run under the auspices of the National Federation, we do not enjoy the same level of control over the sport, as there's no monopoly that we have over dressage activity. Their financial situation is therefore quite different from the one we face here in the UK. Arguably, however, if you wanted to start with a blank sheet of paper, you probably wouldn't set up the British Equestrian Federation in the same way as it is now, and it would be far more preferable if we were all working under one umbrella. As things stand, It's also important to recognise that each of the Olympic disciplines and the BEF are all at different stages of development too, as organisations. They all have very different financial and operational priorities as well. Importantly, we must do what's right for British dressage, and there has to be a financial benefit to our members if we're going to pool resources with other member bodies rather than simply subsidise other activities. Almost 10 years ago now, we made the move from Stoneleigh to Meriden and decided to move into the building owned by British Show Jumping. And we continue to share that head office facility. Now, this has had many benefits, not just financial savings, as we already share IT infrastructure services and other overheads with BS, but we also work closely with them in the areas of finance, legal, HR, marketing, and communications over the years, often sharing resources whenever it's feasible. Of course, it's always easier to share those resources when organisations are under the same roof, particularly when it comes to managing these types of central functions. And the offer has been open to the British Equestrian Federation and British Eventing to join us in the same building at Meriden, which would make things so much easier. Now, we continue to have discussions about shared resources with our colleagues across the Federation, and there's also a great deal of collaboration already going on in various areas, not just with the world-class programmes funded by UK Sport, but also equine welfare, safeguarding, anti-doping, classification, and other integrity services. There are also federation-wide projects in the vitally important areas of equality, diversity and inclusion, as well as sustainability. It is where we have these common goals and objectives where we can make the most significant progress by working together for the benefit of everyone in equestrian sport. I should also point out, of course, that of the Olympic disciplines, BD remains the cheapest to be a member of currently, despite being the fastest growing and now the largest of the three organisations. Our membership fees have only increased once since January 2018, and we have already pledged to freeze subscription levels again in 2023 to help with the pressures that members will be experiencing with the rising cost of living. Our priority, therefore, is to ensure that members continue to get value for money and that we can reinvest directly in the sport for the benefit of our own members and our stakeholders. Thank you. Well, thank you very much to those members who submitted the questions in advance. It's now your turn. It's my chance to open it up to the floor, and it's not just me. We have our BD Board of Directors and our senior management team all present here this evening to help me answer any questions you may have. Now, we have a microphone available, so it all depends on who's going to be brave enough to be the first to put up their hand, but Millie can bring the microphone round, and then we also have a microphone available for the senior management team and directors to answer from the floor. So would anyone like to raise any specific questions that we haven't covered here this evening? Go on, someone can be brave. No one wants to be first. We have someone at the back. Thank you.
Thank you. You might not even be able to answer. Can you hear?
We can, yes.
There's less than 50 people in here, 9 of which are on the board. Less than 2,000 people voted for the chair, but you've got a membership of £18,000 plus, 18,000 people plus. Is there a chance you're somehow missing a trick with connecting with the membership? I don't know what the answer is. It's just I'm surprised there's so few people.
I think it's slightly a nature of post-pandemic UK, because we got the cameras in the back of the room here, and hopefully there are lots of people engaging and watching online. Obviously, it's a new world now with everything hybrid. It doesn't all have to be in person. We felt quite strongly as the board and senior management team that we wanted to take the AGM on the road. Previously, we had been at Stoneleigh at our national championships for many, many years, and we used to get roughly around 100 people attending the AGM there. But we felt it was more important to go around the country. This year, we're going to be at the Area Festival Summer Championships. Next year, potentially at our national convention. But to have an opportunity to take the AGM around the country to different venues to meet our members firsthand. But you're quite right, we only ever have roughly around 10% of our members voting online. We do engage with members regularly, whether it's through the magazine, whether it's through the newsletter, the emails that we send, and via our website. We do a lot to promote the member elections, But of course, different people engage with the sport in different ways. What I would say is that we like to think, with the increasing and growing membership, there are a lot of people out there just happy competing and being part of the sport without having to get involved necessarily in the business of the organisation or indeed the sport politics. So, there are different people who engage with different things. We tend to have about 10% actively engaged in these kind of events. We'd love to see more people here, but we do get to see our members when we go out and about at competitions. If you have any other ideas on how we can make it more engaging, more interesting, please do let me know. We obviously have to do the formal part of the AGM every year. That's part of our obligations. But actually, the important part is this, actually meeting members and hearing your questions and feedback at first hand. So if you have any other ideas on how we can perhaps take this on the road and meet more members face to face, we'd be pleased to hear.
Thank you. That was my easy question, my second one, and then I'll shut up. Membership's increased, riders down the start line has increased, therefore income is up. So could we have our regions back, please?
It's an interesting question. The regions wasn't done purely for financial reasons. It was a realignment of the role and responsibilities of the development officer. It is something that we'll continue to keep under review. It's very much dependent on the number of members, also the number of venues, and the level of activity that's conducted in each region. In looking at the regions, we only lost 2 of the regions. We've still got the 4 regions in England, and Scotland and Wales have always had to operate just as a single country, a single region. So actually the regions are pretty similar in terms of size and proportion, in terms of the number of venues and number of members that they service. However, I mentioned earlier that I think one of the things we're looking at is how we can find a way of getting that sense of community back, looking at more local and regional initiatives. That may be something that we work with our regional committees to look at county coordinators or equivalents, working across the venues, working across the regions to have more localised activity. So I do agree that there needs to be more of that sense of belonging, more of that sense of community, and maybe that will help with engagement at events like this, at the AGM, as you were saying. But that is certainly something that I know our new chair is very keen to explore, and no doubt we'll be discussing at our board meeting next week. I'd just like to open that up to the floor, if I may. Would you like to add anything to that, what I've said there, Ben? We can stand here.
No, just to echo what Jason said, really, the decisions we took at that point in time were influenced by the pandemic and the prevailing winds that we thought we were facing at that point. The role of the development officer has changed significantly and has been brought into the 21st century as far as development of sport is concerned. If you look at what the DOs did previously compared to what they do now, is a much more fit for purpose role of what we need them to do in the regions. So the focus on the venues and their support for activity and championships is the right way to go. We just need to make sure that we are still engaging with all of our members in the regions, in the bigger regions. And as Jason mentioned, that might be a slight change in how we do that, with potentially a more county-based approach. Now, I'm not going to say that right here and now that's the way we're going to go. It's something for the board to discuss with input from our chairs as well.
Thanks, Ben. It's worth just re-emphasising again how that has changed in terms of our activity. A lot of the training activity that used to be done on a regional level is now centralised through flexi training, and that's the right way to go, because through our coach packages and so on, we can signpost our members in the right direction. That's not to say that we don't want to do more added value activity at local and regional level by running camps and clinics and other things, but it has to be something that really does add value to the membership. And I think it's the social element that I think is missing the most. And there's a lot more I think we can do there. Interestingly, however, the growth has all been online because people don't want to travel now. People don't want to go to long distances. Those days of perhaps meeting, at a central point has gone. Very much like this AGM, where we have seen numbers go through the roof is with the online engagement. So it may well be that we do more digital activity, and yes, you can't beat that face-to-face interaction as far as meeting fellow like-minded members in person, where you really want to have that sense of community and common sense of purpose. But actually, a lot of that now happens in the online space. So I think it's a combination of initiatives that we'll need to look at. Another question there, please.
Back.
Hold on one second, we'll just make sure they got your mic up. Yep.
In view of reinvesting back in competitions, which you've talked about doing, it's quite noticeable that judge training, which is largely now online, seems to be getting quite expensive. I mean, I can think of two things that I've booked for at £40 for an online seminar, £60 for an in-person seminar. Are there any plans to look at the costs for judges training? Obviously, we're paying that ourselves.
Yeah, I think it's important to emphasise that we don't make any profit from our judge training, that it covers the costs of that. Obviously, we're working with our partners Black Horse One in terms of the online activity, and that in itself comes with substantial cost, even though actually they developed a lot of that for us in partnership, and actually they were at very low cost because we were at the vanguard and actually developing that system for the first time. And it's something that they hope to then license to other federations, other organisations around the world. But obviously we are mindful of those costs. That's why we focused our priority in increasing the judge payments this year, because they hadn't changed for 10 years. So yes, we realise that you're making a substantial investment in your training and development, but equally we want to make sure that you get the reward for that when you actually go out there and become active judges. So that was very important. We looked at the judge payments to make sure that that was commensurate. We will try to keep costs to a minimum. We're not, again, looking at increasing those costs next year. Like the membership fees, like the subscriptions, they will remain relatively static. And also we will look at potentially offering bursaries to support those judge training programs where possible, to help people on their pathway to becoming a BD official. I'll just hand over to our training and education manager, Charlotte Osborne, who will be able to give you more details.
Yeah, thank you. So you're quite right, Debbie, in terms of there has been an increase in cost, but hopefully you've seen the benefit in terms of the quality of the resources, the more professional and structured training that you're getting, hopefully. That has really been the key to what we've done in terms of the structural stuff with the judge education system. Again, I know we had some feedback that the ticket price, if you like, of that is higher than the previous system, but then actually the saving, as Jason said, around costs of transport, travel, accommodation, transporting writers, all of that was sort of geared towards often a 2-hour session. Hopefully the benefit that you see around that extra content. We're also building huge banks of resources. So we're looking at more on-demand training as well, which would then be free because we can repurpose that that footage and stuff as well. So we are looking at that, and also that gives a more flexible level of training as well, so you can engage with it as and when. So there will be other stuff coming down the line that add value to that. So hopefully you've seen that.
As Charlotte rightly said, there again, you know, because we're able to move a lot of that activity now online, it does save in other costs associated with travel, hotel, accommodation expenses, and so on. So yes, you know, it is a balancing act, as with all of these things, but I can again assure you that, you know, it's not an area where we make any profit, and continues actually to be subsidised by BD regardless. But again, we'll try and make whatever we can to reinvest in that area. Another question there? Hold on, just wait 1 second for the microphone if possible.
You're saying British dressage encompasses from grassroots to elite. Well, why, for the amateurs, you just go to Inter 1, not higher? You're saying as an amateur you can't go higher than that. Also, look at the veteran classes. You know, you get to 55 and you can't do higher than PSG. So, you know, you put limits on us amateurs straight away.
It's an interesting one. I don't personally think that's putting limits on. We try to look at progression at all levels, from riders progressing up through the levels through bronze when they're first starting out in the sport, but then progressing on to silver. If they're good enough to be competing at those upper levels, particularly when we're talking about Inter 1 and above, or PSG and above, then why not try your hand at the silver section, where there are plenty of other opportunities available. There's also an important aspect that we need to consider about horse welfare, because obviously for those riders and combinations that are inexperienced at the level, we don't want people to be overfaced. We don't want our horses to be overfaced in the bronze section, and we need to be very careful and mindful that we're doing things that are appropriate in terms of horse welfare and not asking too much of our equine partners. I will just hand over to Lou Jones, our sport operations manager, who can give you more details in terms, because we get this question quite often in terms of why do we don't offer opportunities up to Grand Prix in the bronze section.
Really, it's down to numbers. The reason why the Inter 2 was removed from the area festival was that we just didn't have the numbers coming through, and you'll see at the weekend we have better numbers than we did last year, but we are still quite low on Inter 1, certainly in the bronze and the silver sections. So it is a fine line, because we still want to be able to have competition, but we need to obviously make sure that there are people coming through, and it is an ever-evolving thing, I think, in the fact that we fluctuate in various sections throughout. So I don't. I mean, Jason has mentioned quite some of the a lot of the things that we do have to consider. I think that's the Associated Championships, isn't it? I think that is something that we've redone the format this year, and at the moment it's looking like we've got some very healthy entries. We've had 1,600 scores registered for the Associated Championships across the two venues. It is something that, again, it's going to evolve. Originally, PSG was just thought that was, not all of the breeds go up to PSG. I think, again, it comes down to demand, and let's see, that's not off the table, because certainly I would love to think that I would, 55, which isn't that far away, would be up the higher echelons of the sport. I'm not saying anything, but I think we've tinkered with the Associated Championships to try and get it right. And as I say, nothing's off the table. That's just a conversation we have to have and see who we've got. We've got the data. We can run the reports. If the appetite is out there, then that's certainly something to consider. I know we do have concerns around some of the PSG in the higher age category for the horse in the veterans. That is where we have got to have a look, because we are concerned some of the scores over the years haven't been as high as they would have been when they were in their heyday. But certainly for the rider, I don't think we can write the riders off just yet. Yeah, but definitely worth another conversation, Joe. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's something that's worth emphasising, that we are very mindful that we want to give more opportunities at small and middle tour level, and I think that's something that has been on the agenda for some time, but probably thwarted during the pandemic, because we had to try and find homes for different riders and different championships. As Lou says, it is a numbers game. We need to now look, now that we have a full cycle of 12 months of normal, in inverted commas, competition, with the increased numbers, we can now do the evaluation again and see if there is demand. Obviously, if there is demand and we feel that it can rightly be achieved within the parameters that I say with regards to equine welfare, and that people are actually able to perform at the sufficient standard, then yes, absolutely we'll look at it. But I do remember that when we did have those levels before, some of those percentages were very low, and the quality wasn't great. And we do just need to be a bit mindful of doing the right thing by our equine partners as well. Absolutely, yes.
I think there's also the Middle Tour Championships that you can have a look at as well. We're looking to, obviously, with the closure of KISO next year, we are looking to rehome that. And hopefully that will be a more favourable, no, that's the wrong word, sorry, a good championship for people to come to, but obviously that's into, to bronze and A and B with the silver, so that could be something that is a next step up for you.
So the Middle Tour Championship, we have ambitions to integrate that within another one of our championships. That's again on the agenda for the board next week, but that's hopefully something we can announce before the end of the year. Question in the middle there, please.
Touching on a few things that have already been mentioned to do with the cost of living crisis and also the cost of training. For coaches, judges and competitors, there seems to be a lack of crossover with compulsory CPD to maintain your status as a judge or coach along with other associations, be it Chess Pony Club. Is there going to be a way in the future to make that more transferable? Because from a coach and judge point of view, there is a lot of the courses that cover the same ideas of things, but they won't cross over between associations. So when you look at adding up the cost of all the different training and the time, and also the time that you're then away, or sometimes the online stuff, but also that time on the computer, say, that you're doubling or tripling the amount of time you spend, would that be something that will be more transferable in the future?
It's very timely that you ask that. Again, we've got a presentation going to the board next week around this very issue, around CPD activity. Again, don't want to make excuses about the pandemic, but it was something that was on our strategic hit list back in 2020. And we haven't managed to make the progress that we wanted over the last couple of years. However, we've got some really exciting plans in this area. We had the training committee meeting earlier this week, and we were looking at making significant progress in this area, hopefully over the next 12 months. And that includes accredited and recognised prior learning and giving some credit to the CPD activity that you've undertaken through other organisations as well. And we're going to put some processes in place, some mechanisms where that can be evaluated and checked, and then you get credits against that activity that you've conducted as well. Again, I'm just going to hand over to Charlotte and Harry, who are championing this. But yes, it is a hot topic, and Charlotte can give you some more details.
Yeah, it is a really timely question, actually. So in terms of what BD are doing, as Jason said, Harry and I presented something to the training committee, which has been in the pipeline for quite some time. The plans around that absolutely are about that crossover, but it's breaking down and making it very outcome focused for the role, so technical training versus self-development and role-specific training. So where you are banking those credits, it is absolutely going to be transferable, and that'll be a system that we roll out across all coach and official areas within BD. It's also very timely, as Jason said, around the work that's going on in the wider federation. So as well as being the training education manager at British Dressage, I also chair the coach development action team for the British Equestrian Federation. So there are representatives around that table from every member body, including Horse Scotland as well. And Richard and I do some work together with Fiona as well, so we're making sure that there is availability across the whole of the UK for coach development in particular. But we are currently working with the British Equestrian Federation on a mapping exercise, which is to identify the gaps across all the qualification structures within the federation, and to help those coaches that might have multiple technical competencies. I'm sorry to go all education speak. I can hear Jason sort of cringing as I said it. But to help coaches transition across qualifications more easily. It's also making sure that we're clarifying the routes for coaches. So actually, I think once you're in it, you're kind of in it and you know where to go next and who to go to, but to make that easier. But also about making the routes into coaching easier so that we have, and clearer for people, so that we have routes into the sport for everybody that want to get involved in a professional capacity. And in Claire's video, she also talked about apprenticeships, so that's something else to help with that longer term development of coaching. But CPD absolutely is something that we are looking at in this mapping exercise, and there's always going to be technical specialisms for each sport or each activity that we're doing. But there is also going to be that commonality, and that is absolutely something that Horse Scotland have explored as well, with having that core coaching content and then the top-up activities. So it's absolutely something that's on the table right now. And at the next, so we have the board, 2-day board meeting where we'll just be, hopefully, as long as the directors agree, signing that off. And then on the Thursday, I actually take that to CDAT as well, so we'll be talking about that a little bit more. But there's also the external mapping exercise going on, so it's really, really topical at the moment. So thank you.
So in summary, watch this space, but absolutely this is going to be a key area for focus in the next 12 months, and hopefully this time next year I can summarise all the progress that we're going to hopefully make in that area. Any more questions? Oh, we've got another one from Derek, please.
Thanks. It's less of a question and more of a clarification initially. On the reserves, the aim is to spend 10% of our reserves on projects. Is that over the next 3 years?
It's a good question. The board have yet to look at this. They're obviously considering it again next week at the 2-day meeting. But yes, that was the intention, that we would commit £250,000 in designated funds next year. That'd be for next year's budget. However, some of those projects may take longer, over a 2-3 year period. So it very much depends on what the project is, what the scope is, but importantly, we're not going to be using those reserves to subsidise operational overheads. So these are designated funds for projects and initiatives that we wouldn't otherwise be doing. So it has to be additional activity, not replacing what we should already be doing within the auspices of our general day-to-day work as an organisation and a charity. I'm going to hand over to our Finance Director, Caroline Godfrey, who'll be able to give you more details.
Yes, thank you. I mean, the reason we're using designated funds is because there's no way we have the staff resource or the ability to just plough £250,000 back in one go. So by putting the money into the designated funds, we're making a statement of intent and saying this is set aside. And those designated funds will effectively mean that at the end of the year, when the accounting is done, that the monies will have an overspend on the general account, and then the designated funds will be accounted for in that way. What it does mean as well is that when we have any extra surplus, if we create it in the year, we can then move that back into the designated funds. But the key thing is that we are saying we will reinvest as quickly as we can, but on specific projects. We're not going to waste the money, because it's important that we use members' money very carefully, and as a charity as well, we need to get it right. So specific projects, special projects, not general overheads, and we will invest it as fast as we can in a practical way, in terms of staff resource and in terms of the appropriate projects. Because obviously if we're going to put bursaries in place, then we need to make sure those bursaries are being applied sensibly and not just giving money out regardless. So there's a lot of work that we're doing. We've had a discussion at the Finance and Business Development Committee. We've come up with the 6 areas we think are appropriate to reinvest the funds in, and we will be discussing it again at the board next Wednesday.
The only other thing I would add to that is that obviously we're keen to hear your feedback too as members. So if there's anything that we haven't covered this evening that you think we're missing, particular areas where you would like to see further investment, this is your organisation. Let us know and we'll throw it into the mix. Absolutely, there's nothing off the table at the moment. So yeah, we're very much interested to hear your feedback on some of those ideas. Any more questions? We got some late joiners at the back of the room who've been busy competing here at Arena UK. Any questions from the back of the room? Hold on 1 second. We'll just give you the mic so everyone can hear.
Hi. So I was watching this on live just as I finished.
there was a lady who was talking about the Inter 2 and Grand Prix to be here, sort of like a pet plan and veterans. So I do agree with that. I think we should get that in because there are some of us who are at that level now. My horse is 16 and we're trying to get a Grand Prix by the end of the year. So in veterans and at pet plan, there are quite a few of us who are training at that level. I think you should put that level in, and if you don't get the numbers, then don't put the class in. But if you do get the numbers, then it would be quite nice to actually have that class.
I think, yes, absolutely. As the sport continues to grow, we'll have to grow with it. You know, as we've seen already, as the sport's grown, we've added the 2 seasons, adding in the Summer Area Festival Championships to complement the winter, to give more opportunities for grassroots riders. It's very interesting this year to see that actually the number of qualifications were actually bigger at bronze than they were silver for the first time. So that in itself indicates that the numbers are very much growing in the bronze section. So we need to take a close look at that and see where the opportunities are. And if that means that we need to progress further up the levels, then absolutely that's what we'll do. As I say, it's a numbers game. We'll do some more evaluation, do some more analysis, and that will go through to the Sport Operations Committee as part of their overall review. They are looking at the silver section primarily, but we can also add this into the mix at the same time. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Very good. Any more questions? Give it a couple of minutes just in case, or a couple of seconds, I should say, just in case. Any late stragglers, any late questions? Anyone want to be brave? Otherwise, I will bring proceedings to a close. Last chance. Very good. Okay. So that brings this evening's session to a close. But just before we finish, I just want to thank everyone for the support that we have received at British Dressage over the last 2 years. It's been a turbulent time for everyone, with much uncertainty, and we're certainly not out of the woods yet as we face the cost of living crisis, the high inflation and interest rates, as we've heard. Hopefully we've given you some reassurance that the sport is in safe hands and that we'll do what we can to reinvest back into the sport to help you and to give benefit back to all of our members. We're very fortunate we've had a very strong recovery period and we continue to grow as a sport, but we couldn't achieve this without the loyal support of our members, which we never take for granted. As I hope has been evident this evening, the BD board, our technical and regional committees, and our team of dedicated staff have all continued to work very hard on your behalf and enhance the membership experience and support the sport that we all love. Your contribution, however, is much appreciated by all of us. So to all BD members, whether riders, coaches, owners and breeders who produce the high standards of performance that we're now seeing inside the boards, or to the organisers, judges, stewards, writers and scorers who manage our competition so effectively and brilliantly outside of the arena. Thank you all very much for your part in making dressage the fastest growing equestrian sport in the UK. Thank you for joining us this evening. We hope to see you all at a BD competition, training event or championship again very soon. Thank you very much for joining us.